The world marked the World Pneumonia Day, and all this week the theme on fighting pneumonia continues, and that's what we're discussing today on Your Health. And I'm now joined live from our I&M studio by Alfred Ochola, who's a child survival technical advisor for PATH. Good morning, Alfred.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for making time for us this morning, Alfred. And I'll just start by asking the obvious: what causes pneumonia?
Pneumonia is caused by a number of things, but the leading one is bacteria, followed by maybe viruses. But in children, we hasten to mention that it can also be caused by what we call aspiration pneumonia, which means the children inhale something into their lungs and gives them infection.
Okay. And how prevalent is it?
Yeah, pneumonia is quite prevalent in this area. In fact, pneumonia is the leading killer of children under 5 at the moment, followed by diarrhea. And it is a killer because of a number of things. It is a killer because the mothers or the caregivers don't notice the signs and symptoms of pneumonia in good time. And sometimes some of those signs they may not know are as a result of pneumonia. That's one. And number 2 is that pneumonia is acute illness. It kills very fast, and therefore one requires to always take action in good time. Any delay in seeking appropriate treatment leads to death. And thirdly, I think we are also not having access to essential medicines that are necessary to fast treat pneumonia. I'm talking about amoxicillin. And you mentioned the signs and the symptoms that parents and caregivers need to watch out for at an early stage. And what are those signs and symptoms? I tell you, they are so basic, and a number of times they are taken for granted. One is that a child would cough. Yes. A child would have difficulty in breathing. And when that child has cough, difficulty in breathing, you need to look at how the child is breathing. For example, you and I, we just breathe normally. You don't see my chest moving. But when you go to the extent where the child now has to have extra effort to breathe, for example, doing something like this, that is a bad sign. The third thing is that when the children have pneumonia, listen, there are certain unique sounds that they would produce that would alert you that the pneumonia is advancing. We call those in medical circles stridor, and sometimes we call them wheeze. In normal circumstances, the children would do something like this. That is not normal. And secondly, they would be having the sounds of a wheeze. Those should be detected and such children taken to hospital early enough. Okay. Alfred, and also what makes children susceptible? Are there some unique special circumstances that you would say would make some of these children susceptible to pneumonia? Yes, you know, children are still young, so their body immunity are still weak as compared to adults. And therefore, when they have a big dose of the infecting pathogen, like bacteria, they would first develop the pneumonia as compared to the man. Pneumonia usually arises from bacteria that we normally have in the mouth and in the nose. And when people sneeze around you, you easily would catch that bacteria, and it invades your lungs and gives that infection we call pneumonia. Right. So basically it is immunity in children which is lower than it is in adults, and worse for children who have other problems, for example, co-infection with HIV/AIDS, or children who have diarrhea, or children who have measles. So their rate of getting the pneumonia is even higher. All right, and speaking of the immunity, when should children get vaccinated against pneumonia? Thank you very much. The pneumococcal vaccine, or what we call PCV10, is supposed to be given at age 6, 10, and 14 weeks. Yes, at 6, 10, and 14 weeks. Although, if a child misses to get those vaccines at that time, there's no big loss, because the child would still continue to get the same vaccines within 1 year. In fact, within even 2 years is still acceptable. But in very worst circumstances, any child below 5 years who has not gotten PCV10 could still be given this vaccine, but they are maximally expected to be given this vaccine within the first 1 year or the first 2 years.
All right, and you talked about the treatment, amoxicillin, and in terms of its accessibility to all, especially those in the grassroots areas, mashinani, how available is it?
Yes, the preparations that we have currently are amoxicillin capsules, which you know the children cannot take.
Yeah.
Difficult for them to take. And then we also have the syrup form. The syrup form has issues because once the medicine is constituted, from the time it is manufactured up to the time the child will be given that particular drug, once you open the bottle, it's supposed to be used within a very short time. And a number of times we know that those syrups, they degenerate, they go down because the conditions under which we live. Like if the temperatures are very high, you'd find the syrup is not very effective. So it leaves us with the next option of dispersible amoxicillin tablets. Dispersible amoxicillin tablet is very easy to use because you will put it in the water and give it to the child that time. In other words, you give it when it is very fresh and strong. We have this recommended by WHO, but in this country as yet, we have not made it, one, in the essential drugs list, and two, we need to have it also out in the shelves. Of course, it is also not available at the moment, even in the other outlets, for example, chemists, because that preparation of the tablets is not commonly available in Kenya.
So then
but it is the best because it is recommended by WHO.
So then what happens? How are the people, what are they using to treat this? Because if it's not available at the chemist and it's not readily available around the country,
yes.
What are you as PATH, and if you know the government, doing to this end to ensure it's more available and accessible?
Yes, you know, PATH is known worldwide for innovation.
Yeah. And
it is the wish of PATH that every person gets the right treatment wherever they are, whatever level of category they are in the society. So we are trying to advocate that since this is something that could be easier and fast. By the way, amoxicillin works faster than the first line drug that we're using now called tremoxazole, and therefore it would make sure the response to the children who have pneumonia becomes much better. Okay.
And are there some parts of the country that have higher pneumonia cases than others?
Yes. There are countries where we have more pneumonia cases than others, like in the western region, we have very many cases of pneumonia. Also in the central region, because of the temperatures, because of the rains and the temperatures and the altitude. So when children are exposed to cold, for example, and when children are not in a clean environment, particularly in the sense of housing. For example, if they're in crowded houses, you'd find that they are more susceptible to get pneumonia and chest infections. What I'm talking about here is if a child is exposed unduly to environments where they will meet people who are sneezing, it is dusty environment, the houses don't have windows for what we call through ventilation, such children are more likely to have pneumonia than those who are having space, proper adequate space in their houses.
All right, Dr. as you wind up, I'll take you back to the medicine and ask you how much is it? How expensive or cheap is it?
Yeah, it's tricky because first of all, amoxicillin is cheaper than tremoxazole, even if you go to the local market at the moment. But because it is not yet in the country, it would not fit well to say what price it is, but it will definitely be, first of all, it is in a tablet form, and secondly, it will be cheaper than the tremoxazole, and therefore it will be more available. In fact, PATH, in working with the communities, because that's a great work PATH does in this country, we would rather that if the amoxicillin dispersible tablet is made available, it could be made to be accessed even through community health workers. The community health workers are being trained in Western Province.
All right. Finally, tell us, as we're marking this week, pneumonia. Yesterday was the International Day for Pneumonia, and all this week there is that, and the theme, fighting pneumonia, save the children. What are some of the activities we are likely to see, Alfred? Can you hear me? All right, we seem to have lost Alfred, who's live at our INM studios, but has given us quite a lot of information as far as pneumonia is concerned. We've heard what he had to say about the causes and what, as a parent or a caregiver, and even the symptoms and the signs you need to look out for if you have children, and the medicine, of course, the cures that he's talked about, amoxicillin, and its unavailability in the country. We heard him talk about that as well, and prevention, what one needs to do to ensure their children are not prone to this disease, a killer disease for children. So we thank Alfred Ochola for being part of us this morning on our Your Health segment, talking about the fight against pneumonia. That has been Your Health.